Buongiorno e benvenuti. Welcome to Art Yoga Pills with me, your host, Binny. In this space, we will connect and share together about creativity, inner child, and self-awareness. Siete pronti? Enjoy! Kia ora, ciao a tutti and welcome to this new episode of Art Yoga Pills. Today I'm not alone, I have a very special guest, Brian Berneman. How are you today?
Thank you, Dini, for having me. I'm doing great and such a wonderful, wonderful time of the year now. So yes, I'm excited to be here having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me. And I have to say that this is also one of my favorite time of the year. So I'm glad to sharing it with you in this occasion. I know you and I'm very familiar with what you do, but I'm also aware that many people might actually not know who you are. And actually, taking it exactly from your podcast, who is Brian?
Thank you for that. As I shared a lot of times in my podcast, I love this question to see what comes up because so many people are so attached to the tagline or what they do and things like that. And it's like, well, who am I? I'm this ever evolving being that, yes, there's labels attached to what I do or the work that I do and how I show up in the world. Yet I'm in all of the time growing and trying to understand me and others even more. And I think that that is the beauty of as well being able to live a little bit without labels. It's like, okay, like even forgetting my name, forgetting where I come from, forgetting or not forgetting, but letting go of that and letting go of like the labels that other people put on me as well, and how freeing that is. So I love that for myself. And yes, I know that a lot of times that doesn't work with telling people what do I do and how I show up in the world and things like that. So um, at the moment, I am so privileged that I'm able to do what I love, to live the way that I love, choosing where, how, when, everything, like all of the W's, like I'm choosing them. And I'm so grateful that that is something that I can do. And that my path led me to this moment where I can share with so many people part of what has helped me to be well and to stay well, and support others with their well-being and to raise awareness and support people in making changes so that they can have an impact in the world, whether that is their own lives, the lives of those around them, or the larger world. So that's, in a sense, what is happening with this being that is talking right now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really resonate with what you were sharing about getting attached so much to labels. Something that I also discovered in the beginning of my path, getting attached to who I was, but in terms of how do I define myself with my career path.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in your sharing about um, the different aspect that you connect with people to support them with their well-being and as well as you support yourself in that path. And I wonder if you can share a little bit more about that in terms of what is actually is the way that you connect with people and you support them.
Mm. Yes, thank you for that. So I actually do this in a lot of different ways. And it's one of the things that I love. I love the fact that a lot of the tools and the wisdom traditions and teachings that I have learned through the years that have really supported me is something that now I can share with people. So as an example of some of the things that I do, I teach here at university. I work with businesses running well-being programs for their teams, their employees. I work one-on-one with individuals on coaching / mentoring capacity. I work one-on-one with people on holistic therapy or healing space as well, whether that is through energy healing like Reiki or other modalities similar to that, or working with sound, sound healing, sound vibrations, family constellations. I teach meditation classes, Tibetan yoga, sound bath or sound journeys. I run a lot of events and workshops around well-being, and for me well-being as well, it's not only the internal well-being, it's the external well-being. So the well-being of the earth for me as well is part of well-being. So potentially that um, for the majority of the population, we would use the word sustainability or regeneration or circularity, anything that is related to taking care of the well-being of the earth or the collective. And that's some of the, the ways that I'm working at the moment within all of the things that I do, as well as running a podcast and doing online courses and stuff like that. So I love the fact that I'm able to do so many different things because it keeps my days and my weeks really interesting. I'm able to actually, have not so much of a monotonous experience. So every day is different. Like today, I had a private meditation class, a family constellation session, a coaching client, and now I'm talking with you. And it's like this day is wonderful. Like I'm able to do this, and I'm making a living. It's like that's a bonus. So for me, one of the things with all of this is that because I have learned so many different ways, I can actually meet people where they are, and I can work with everyone that I work with in a personalized way. It's not, I found many, many years ago that things are not one size fits all. Everything needs to be personalized to each of us because we are all unique. So we are all, yes, we are all part of the oneness and we're all the same. There's no separation, yet there's a dynamic energy configuration for everyone that makes us unique and specific. So we all resonate with something different. We all need to work differently. And that is my approach.
And is a approach that I really start to explore for myself as well after my period of sticking with one label and go ahead until retirement. And it's something really beautiful because, as you said, you initially starting from yourself, you have a wonderful experience every day that is different and allowing you to connect with different people, different activities, and discover not just yourself but also other people through your sharing, and then extending that even with what you were saying about the well-being of the earth itself, which is something really important that I notice just now, how start to finally arrive into the awareness of many more people. And I'm glad that there is someone such as yourself that can explore that in a bigger scale as well.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I wonder if any of these practices that you're sharing now started in your early life, or you discovered them throughout your path through challenges that you might have faced in your journey. So,
Mm.
how you start to unravel yourself in your life path?
Yeah, I've been actually really fortunate that when I was a kid, my parents started their own journey and their own personal development or spiritual journey. And through that, they started to introduce little things at home. Growing up, I was, a typical kid back in Argentina, in the big city in Buenos Aires, going to school, going to play sports, doing all sorts of activities. And little by little, by the early like teen years, my parents were getting more and more into different practices. And little by little, they would recommend, like, oh, read this book or go and check out that class, or, inviting me and my siblings to go and explore these different things that they were starting to do. Um, and for whatever reason, I really resonated with that. And looking back and talking with my parents, they told me that up until the moment that I started to discover or explore a lot of these practices, that I hadn't found my thing. Like everything was like, I could see that my siblings were, like school or different activities. They were great. It was their thing. And I didn't have that. So like looking back, I can actually see that in the moment. I had no idea that that was the case. In the moment, I had no idea even that I was so stressed out as a teenager, that I was completely out of touch with my body and with my feelings. I was completely in my head, which didn't help with the stress and the overthinking. By the time that I was, like driving when I was 16 and I started driving, I started getting road rage. Like it was quite a lot, which I mean, I think that that's most people's experiences. Yet at the same time, I had, whilst I was experiencing all of that, little by little, exploring meditation, Tibetan yoga, energy healing, all of these different things, which I really resonated with. And I remember like my first ever class of Tibetan yoga, like I can still feel it in my body. Like I can still recall the feeling. It was the first time in my life that I actually felt my body and the feelings in my body and the sensations, and I felt like the energy. And from that moment on, that was kind of like a before and after. And the same when I did my first ever Reiki healing. And I was like, this is amazing. And then I started to play with energy and learning all of these different techniques and getting deeper into different meditation and movement and embodiment practices, getting into exploring family constellations, sound healing, and little by little, like all of this, and reading a lot of the books that I really resonated with, that opened my eyes to a different way of living, to a different way of seeing reality, of seeing how to interact with this world, how to interact with myself. Um, and then that moment, especially, like I had all of these different things, but Tibetan Buddhism was such a big thing. And I'm so glad that my parents were doing that and they introduced me to these practices, because it's not that typical. And that, like as a teenager, like someone starts to do that, like it needs to be that either you're going through super big challenges and you discover it by yourself, or like me, that I'm really grateful and fortunate that I had my parents introducing me to all of that. Yet it was my choice to go and do it, as I'm like my siblings didn't do that. And I really resonated with that, and I did the practices. I went and I did the practices, and I explored it and I experimented, and that led me to many years of more and more exploration. And yes, and like now for the last 15 years, haven't experienced any stress, haven't experienced any challenges in the way of being a problem. I have experienced challenges, yet they haven't been stressful or they haven't been a problem, because I understood what they were, and they were just circumstances, that they were there. Challenging circumstances, yet circumstances. So I didn't arrive to that understanding from one day to the next, but I had to, like keep on learning and exploring. And the changes that I see on myself from the teenager Brian to the early 20s Brian to now in my mid 30s is huge. Like I feel like, like a lot of times looking back, and it's like, who is that person? Because I was this little shy kid that wouldn't even ask a question to anyone. Like I was so afraid to ask questions to people because I was so shy that, like if the train, I need to catch a train and I wasn't sure which one it was, I was afraid to go and ask which train would I have to get to, so perhaps I would miss my train. Like up to that level, I was shy. And now, like I can go and I can speak at a conference or a festival, like to hundreds or thousands of people, and I'm completely comfortable. And that change I see, and I'm like, wow, like what a journey it has been, and it's still going. And I'm looking forward to, like, in 10 years or 20 years, looking back to this moment and say, like, wow, like you were like so different as well. And it's like, I'm so looking forward to seeing what are the next layers of the potential of who I am. So yeah.
Thank you so much for your sharing. It's so wonderful to get to know someone better through questioning, and I'm glad that I also discover my inner voice to be able now to ask questions to people and start to get to know them a little bit better. And I'm glad that this allowed me to get to know you in this case. I wanted to explore what you were sharing about how fortunate you were because your parents introduced you to something in such an early time in your life, where of course sometimes there is the rebellious phase of being teenager and not wanting to do anything that your parents is asking you to. And I wonder as well, in that period when you started to do your first workshop as an attendee and started to get to know a little bit more of this practice that now became part of your life, were you already aware of the potential that they had, related also to what you were sharing, for example, about the rage that you were experiencing as a driver,
Mm.
as a teenager, not aware of your body, or is something that it clicked in that side but didn't click on the fact that could have been linked, it could have been as a support for you to develop yourself and discover yourself to the journey and the path where you are now? It was
Mm.
immediate or not really?
When I went to try out all of these different things that my parents were, inviting me to explore, I had no idea that that was to be the outcome. Like, I just heard, like, if I wanted to go and try this, Tibetan yoga class, I didn't know that, the what it was going to be. Like, I actually went, super open to be like, oh, my parents are recommending this, like, I'll go and explore it without knowing really what it was, without knowing what could potentially be the benefit or the changes in my life. So all of these things, especially at the beginning, I had no idea what could change in my life. So I didn't go there thinking like, oh, I'm experiencing all of this stress, so I'm going to go and do this, or I'm experiencing this road rage, I'm going to go and do this. Like, that was only after starting to do that I noticed, like, I'm driving one day, and I noticed that, someone cut me off, and instead of getting that rage and that feeling and then just blah, like exploding, um I felt super relaxed. I'm like, oh, like, that which I've been doing on the classroom actually has an impact in my daily life. So then I started to practice more, and then I started to practice more, and I think that, I could see some changes in my parents. I could see as well, reading some of the books, some of the potentials, but I didn't make that click immediately. That came much later, when things actually started to happen. That I was like, now, I've been doing that practice. Now I understand why I'm not reacting so much, why I'm not getting so emotional, or all of these different things. And I think that as well, there was something inside of me that, even though I felt at that moment that, like, my life was wonderful, like, I felt there was more to life. There was a level of depth that I wasn't experiencing. Um, and I think that that was a little bit what led me to explore some of these things that were different, because, like, this is not what the typical kids my age or back in Argentina, like, people were doing. This is, like, only a few people do all of this in the world. So yeah, it's not the typical thing yet. I am really fortunate that one thing, and this didn't have to do so much with these practices, but somehow my parents taught me how to stand in my principles and to not allow others to pressure me into doing things that I didn't want to do. So even by the time that I was 13, and none of my friends started to, like drink or smoke or do drugs, like just experimenting with that, and I didn't feel like doing that, I was able to say no with knowing fully well that okay, they might think that I'm a loser. Like, who cares? I had that already, and I think that has been such a powerful aspect of how I chose to live my life, because I left Argentina like really like really young, in my super early 20s, and I just left. Like, I bought a one-way ticket and I left, and it's like, and then I'm living by myself in in a foreign country, different language. Even though I could speak English, like it's a different language, it's a different place. There's all of these different new things, and I'm like, it's such an interesting way of making my own path, and even deciding at one point, at one point I decided I'm going to leave this world that I knew, and I went to live to California in the middle of the mountain at a Tibetan Buddhist retreat center. And it's like, who does that? Like, who leaves everything and goes to a retreat center and lives there? And it's like, and I remember once even I went to visit back Argentina, and I met with my childhood friends, and one of them was like, "Hey, I heard that you went into a cult," and I'm like, "What?" Like, I'm just practicing at it's a Tibetan Buddhist center, but yeah, but it's such a foreign thing what I did, and so different, that I think that looking back, I'm like, wow, like the guts that I had to do that. And I'm so blessed that I had the support of my parents, like in all of that they were like, go and do that, like go and explore that, and they were supporting me. And with that, I'm so blessed, because not everyone has that, and not everyone has the support of their families, or the potential even to go and explore these different ways of living in a foreign country, living within a very different philosophy or tradition. So to be able to have done all of this, it's been wonderful. And yeah, like, going back to the initial question, I had no idea what was going to happen. I was basically, like just getting into that path and being like, I'm just going to trust and see where this takes me. Without knowing, like, oh, this is going to heal this, or this is going to, change in this way, stuff like that. I was sort of like, there's something that I'm resonating with here. This seems interesting. I'll go and explore it.
It's a really beautiful combination between engaging the flow and stepping into the unknown and trust at the same time, because you shared that you had the support of your family also to trust the unknown and started traveling, which is something that in my case I didn't experience apart from my sister. She was the one supporting me while everybody else were not against, but projecting their fear into my possible journey. And I wonder how was for you your experience overseas in terms of facing your own challenges and coping with different strategies that were not allowing you to have people that supported you so close to you, having the strength to find it within yourself or
Mm.
with those that you meet along the way, which might have influenced also your potential journey from where you were and where you went and where you then went again and again and again up to New Zealand.
Mm. Yeah, I think that it's been really interesting. Since I was like young, I actually always enjoyed being by myself. Um, so, being abroad and not knowing anyone, starting over, like each time that I went to live in a different place. I never felt like, scared or anything. I was more like open to whatever was going to happen. And I knew, like that I had the support of my parents there, even though of course, like I'm sure that they had their fears and that they would have loved for me to stay and be with them like nearby. I I always felt that wherever I am home. As long as I am there, I am home. It's not so much where I am in the world, it's just the fact that if I'm in my body, I feel at home, and I'm okay even if I'm going to be by myself. Like I don't feel like lonely. Like I can be alone but not lonely. So I've always been okay with that, even as I moved from different place to different place. And I always stayed connected, like talking with my parents. I still talk with my parents like multiple times per week. I have a great relationship with them. So it was an interesting way of opening myself, meeting some people, starting to make some connections in a different place, meeting people from different cultures or different ways of thinking. So as well I could expand my own biases, my own judgments, and be like, okay, like this idea that I had about these people, and it's like, where is this coming from? Like that person is not like that. So just opening my mind to different things, I think that was key. And yeah, like I never felt the like I'm by myself and I need to start over. I always felt like, oh cool, like something new. And it's like a next explore. And as well, and I think that this was key always for me, is knowing that I am in such a position of privilege because of having the support of my parents, and being educated, and having, and knowing multiple languages, and having different skills. I always knew, like what's the worst case scenario in all of these things, like that I go somewhere and I don't like it, I'll just go back, like, or I go and I work in something and it's like, well, that I didn't like that, well, I'll just stop and I'll find something else to do. I have been so open to that, because at the end of the day I know worst case scenario, I just go back. Worst case scenario, I'm not going to end up on the street. I have skills that if I lose my work for whatever reason, I can go and I can find tomorrow work cleaning floors even, like. So I knowing that, and knowing that anytime that something happens, worst case scenario is like, mom, dad, I'm going like home, or like, could I have a little of money, or even with friends like doing that. That for me was always the reason of like, why would I do something like else? Why would I do something that I don't want to do, when I can, I could potentially, that could not work, but also doing something that I don't want to be doing could not work. So why would I spend my time doing something different? And I think that as, like I always wanted to explore the world. I always wanted to live in different places. I always wanted to meet different people, different cultures, and all of that. I think that was part of me going and not even feeling like, like I'm by myself or I need to start over. And it's like, cool, new experience. Let's do this.
It's really wonderful and inspiring. My experience, listen to your experience, was completely different. I kind of forced myself out of my comfort zone to see what was going to happen out of what was familiar to me.
Mm,
And knowing that within yourself you always had that spark of curiosity and fearlessness, which I hope is a correct word in English, correct
yes.
me if I'm wrong. um, is something very important that I needed to develop, but it feels like that you had it already within yourself, and it's something, or
In some
at
ways,
least you
in
were
some
open to
aspects,
the
yes.
challenge. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were open to the challenge. And I don't know if this is relevant to the conversation, but I will use it anyway as a chance to say that is something that, in my case, I never regret the possibility of stepping out of that comfort zone, because even if you, as you said, there was always the chance to go back if
Mm,
that. that place where I was not going to work for me, I would have probably been more regretful if I never even have tried, instead
Yeah.
of giving myself the chance to see what was going to happen in the
Mm.
journey. And I'm glad that this seems to be for you as well, what
Yeah.
led you to
And,
where you are.
and Dini, I think that as well. This is one of the things that I keep on inviting a lot of people that are in a position that the same, that they know that worst case scenario, they have people that they can rely on. Like, it's not that they are going to end up homeless. Like, I'm all of the time, it's, like, if that's the worst case scenario, like if your worst case scenario is still quite privileged in this world, like that doesn't mean, when I say privilege, it doesn't mean like millionaires or anything, like someone that can be like, this didn't work, I'll go back to live with my parents, or I'll go and like as I've done, crash on a friend's couch because I was waiting for my visas to get approved and I couldn't work. And it's like, well, like I cannot pay rent because I'm not making any money. So I'll just go and I stay with friends. And I'm so grateful that they allow me to crash on their couch. And when someone is in a position that's their worst case scenario, it's like, go, like step out of that comfort zone, like as you've done, I've done that. Like, step out of the comfort zone, go and explore something different, follow like your dreams, or what feels like it's the next step, or what you'd like to explore, because that, like, if that doesn't work, then cool, now and it's like, again, worst case scenario, you go back to whatever it is that your parents' place or whatever, and it's like, well, you try something different. I think that in this society that we are really comfortable with comfort, and staying where we are, because of fear of failure. Like, there's no such thing as failure with that. It's like, well, I tried that didn't work, okay, like moving on to the next thing. Yeah, that idea of failure is such a big deterrent for most people on doing things, and I'm like, well, even if I would accept that there is such a thing as failure, I much rather fail doing something that I feel like doing than spending my time doing something that I don't want to be doing. So, it's like, I know I'm talking to people that are not in survival mode when I'm saying all of this. That's a very different type of experience. I would have very different invitations or advices or different things that I would share. But for the people that are in a position like this, it's like, why not?
I really like the question, why not? Because it's exactly what can keep on motivating us to explore our life without the usual day-to-day experience that we might mm, being when we are within a certain society that want us to keep on going in the same way that as everybody else. So it's
Mm.
beautiful that we can see what else there is out there beyond our boundaries.
Yeah. And embracing our uniqueness, embracing, like that which feels like that we want to explore, and go and do that, because I feel like, the world is changing so much, and it has changed and it's keeping on changing. And the things that were true 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or even 10 years ago, are not true right now. So for those, like that perhaps are changing jobs all of the time, it's like, and then they hear, oh, millennials, like they cannot stick with one thing. It's like, well, who said that we need to stick with one thing? Like, we might choose to stick with one thing, or we might choose to explore 50 different careers in 10 years. Like, it's like, who says what's right and what's wrong? And I think that this is part of it, is embracing the changes, embracing our uniqueness, embracing our gifts that we're bringing, because most people have been stuck in that place of normal. And we, like, we are not normal, we are unique. Like, normal is like, it's for those that want to stay and play small, and for those that have no choice, of course. But for the ones that we have a choice, it's like, go and play big. Like, do you, and try out the different things. And again, that doesn't work. Okay, just change and do another thing. And and with the understanding and compassion as well for our parents or for other people that might know something different, that they are afraid that we are taking all of these steps, and it's like, why don't you go and find like some stable thing? It's like, well, because I don't want to do that. Like, and what worked many years ago, and that was what they knew how to survive, that might not be the same thing now. So it's not about rejecting like advices or rejecting what our parents or other people might say to us. It's taking that in, but knowing, well, perhaps that's not true anymore, or that's not true for me, or I much rather like live with like much more time and less money, and that's not how most people in society live. And it's like, well, that's my choice. I much rather have time and work less and make less money, because then I'm able to enjoy my life. And that's the way that I enjoy my life. And if someone else enjoys it working, 90 or 100 hours a week, great, like do that. Now the thing is your choice. Are you doing that because it's your choice? And I think that for me is a big thing on being able to make conscious choices in my life, and understanding, am I choosing consciously, or am I just following something that is not my thing, that other people told me, this is what it's like, or this is what one's supposed to do? Who's making the decisions in my life? So the more that I can take responsibility and agency for my decisions, then it's easier to, go on my path.
I really like what you share about also being aware of our choices, because sometimes even those who might have choices and possibilities, they might be so stuck in, I don't have any other choice, I don't have any other option. And I say that because I felt the same. It took me
Mhm.
1 year to figure it out that I had the choice, that I could leave my permanent job, that I could start traveling. Although it took me 1 year time, and for many people, this time will never come. So I wonder if you might have any suggestion for those who might still be stuck in the blockages of themselves, and choices that they th- they might think that they are their ones, but they are attached to someone else or some other circumstances. They are blocking them to be at their full potential, or even just getting out of what is considered normal and trying what can happen to be abnormal as we are.
Yeah, well, I think that, of course, this is, like we're all different. So for everyone, it will be a different way of approaching this. But I think that just looking at other people and looking beyond the people that we know, this is the great thing about the internet nowadays, that we can get inspiration from so many people from around the world that might be living in a completely different way. Like sometimes I watch people that went completely off grid, and it's like, you know, growing up, I would have never thought of like even like living off grid, or like growing your own veggies and different things, or being well, eating well, taking my time, a possibility of living a different life, a possibility of seeing that I can actually make the choices, and that it's okay, and it's okay if that doesn't work, because that's not the ideas that some people have, because we've been conditioned in different ways. So the more that we can look beyond the people that are around us and can be inspired and can ask that question of, am I actually happy? Am I actually doing the things that support me, that serve me in this life, at this moment in this life? Because each moment we change and we evolve. So what's true at one moment is not true at another moment. But at this moment, like, am I happy with my life? And if the answer is no, then it's like, is there another way? Because the majority of people in this world are actually unhappy. They are not doing what they want to be doing. They are not in the relationships that they want to, or the relationship is not how they would like to be. They are not like doing work that they love doing. They're just doing things because they're just, as we've been talking, they're just part of this wheel, and they just never stopped the wheel to be like, Is this what I want from my life? And I think that the power of asking questions is so strong. So for those that perhaps are stuck in that, I think that finding inspiration, like other people that might be living in that way, and as well finding inspiration in people that it's not, like the sons of the billionaires that have everything, every possibility, or famous people. It's like, well, like that might seem wonderful. Is that realistic? It might be, like, but it's just like trying to find everyday people that are, like you, like me, or other people. It's like we moved countries, we are exploring different things that from what we grew up with, and we're doing just fine. So when we can find that inspiration and we can start to ask questions, then we can start to open the doors. And when we start to open the doors as well, we might find that there's other people that might be experiencing the same thing, that they feel stuck in their lives. And when as well we are able to step out of our own way, we might be able to go and seek support from others, asking questions. Like this is one of the things that for me, like why, like working with people like me as a guide or a mentor, or even with the people that I have worked with, it's like having someone there that has your back if you don't have anybody in your life that is in that space. So understanding the power of that connection, the power of like finding that tribe or finding the people that are going to be encouraging, not just like crazy. It's like, oh, leave everything behind. That's not for everyone. Like people need to be in the right space of mind and in the right space in their nervous system to be able to leave everything behind and cut ties with everything and go. That's not perhaps for everybody that fast. Some people is step by step. We don't need to do everything one day to the next. So the more that we're able to do that, getting inspired and then asking questions, then things start to unfold from there.
I really like the even just the simple question of asking ourselves, "Am I happy?" Because that could, you know, give us the possibility of answering truthfully to ourselves and
Mm.
see what else we can do about it if the answer is no, we're not happy.
And most of the time, and this is the key, we even lie to ourselves.
Mm.
So, like I do this a lot of times with some of my clients, and it's like, and I ask them, are you actually being truthful to yourself? Like you can tell me whatever you want, but are you being truthful to yourself? It's the thing as we all know, and this is key to taking action and to making changes in our lives. We all know what is healthy in terms of what we put into our body. We all know that we need to drink water. We all know that we need to eat our veggies. We all know that we need to exercise. We all know that, like if we are kind to others, others will be kind to us. We all know what mostly a healthy living looks like, yet we are not doing that. And the question there a lot of times is like, what's in the way? What's blocking me from actually doing that? Like if I would like to have a six pack, which I don't, but if I would like to have that, then if I'm not going to exercise, that's not going to happen. So what's in the way? What's the gap there that is in between where I am and where I want to be? And the more that I understand that there's all of these possibilities of being well, of eating well, of understanding, like having loving relationships with friends and family and partner or whatever it is, then it's like that is actually a possibility. But most people don't even know, again, that that is even a possibility. Most people believe that life is hard, that life needs to be hard, that relationships, like, you need to have fights, that there's all of these ideas. And it's like, why believe in them? Why couldn't all of your relationships be loving? Why can't your life be easy? Who said that it needs to be hard? Yes, our life is giving us the feedback that is hard, but that's because we believe that it's hard. So because we believe that it's hard, then our life is going to present that to us. So the more that we can actually change that narrative and be like, what's the story that I want to write? So knowing that we have the capacity at any point in our life to rewrite our story. to grab the script and be like, like actually this script is not working. So it's just like in the movies, it's like you're a production company, just get rid of that script and start writing a new one where you are the main character and everything is happening for you. And then it's like, well, can that actually be true? And that's the only thing that we can explore. Like, we have no idea what's going to happen. Like a lot of times I work with people and it's a lot of like we do visualization and intention setting and some people have certain goals. So it's like, okay, like let's go into that direction. But we have no idea what's going to happen. Like how many people in the world knew 3 years ago that COVID was going to hit? And how that was going to disrupt all of our lives. So, like we cannot plan for everything. So when we relax as well, that we relax the expectations, we relax how things need to look like. It's like, well, I'm choosing this direction. Like I'm choosing my life to be well, to explore myself and to explore my blockages, to explore those parts of myself that I have been neglecting, to explore this growth and this connection with the universe, with others. How will that look like? I have no idea, but I'm willing to explore that. And I think that is part of my way of doing things as well. It's an exploration. Like I'm not tied to an outcome. It's like from a Buddhist point of view, for example, it's like I'm going towards enlightenment, right? If I don't reach that in this lifetime, all good. Like I'm still going in that direction. Like I'm not going to stop going in that direction just because I might not get to the top. So it's understanding as well, like, and I know that this is cliche, but it's like, it's all about the journey because the only thing that exists really is now at this moment. There's nothing else that exists. Everything else is just in my mind. So if I can stay with all of these possibilities, then this is great. Now, that's stepping, as we've been talking, stepping into outside of your comfort zone, stepping into the unknown. And for most people, we are not comfortable being in the unknown. We are not comfortable not knowing exactly how this is going to unravel, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, not knowing exactly that if I go and I ask someone something that they are going to give me the answer that I want and they are not going to reject me. Like there's so many things that are preventing us from actually doing that. And when we start to let go a little bit, when we start to, it's not caring, but it's like relaxing the hold that has on us, then it's so much freeing to be able to live this life.
Yeah, to me, regarding that is a lot about patience and flexibility, which are two qualities that I'm still trying to cultivate. I used to be a person that needed to have a plan set and that was going to be, and nothing could have changed in the way, otherwise was going to be really upsetting for the person I was. And maybe I still am in certain aspect of my life, but was really important to me to define my way of committing daily with myself with more patience and more flexibility, whatever way was possible to apply those qualities within myself day by day. Because as you say, and this also might sound like a cliche, the only constant in life is change. So
Mhm.
as long as we trying to open ourselves to what we wish to achieve, but at the same time leave door open for unpredictable challenges and situations that might not exactly bring us towards the direction we wish to go, still we can find that we can grow even through those aspects of discomfort and challenges that might slow ourselves a little bit or shift the way that we are actually going along our journey.
Mm.
So thank
And
you
and
for saying that. Yeah.
and Dean, like this is one of the things why I love working with energy healing, why I love working with movement and embodiment, because I can find all of my blockages and all of those things that are preventing me from actually being open to all of those things, because those blockages are there for a reason, right? They are trying to protect me to survive. And though some of those blockages come from my ancestors, some of them come from my childhood, they are so strong that those are actually the ones leading my life. I'm not in control of my life. My blockages are. So the more that I can work with my blockages, the easier it is to then be open to doing all of those things, to be able to step onto that like out of my comfort zone, and to be able to just be open to exploring. And yes, even if I have a direction, it's like, well, I'm open to the flow of the universe as well. And so I'm not getting attached, and developing, yes, as you're saying, the qualities that I feel like I need at different moments. So if at some moment it's patience, then developing that. If I'm then like wanting to explore more like energy, so to be more outgoing, then exploring that. Like for me, as I said, like I went from being this super shy person to like speaking in stages and like to thousands of people. And it's like I'm calling, I'm cultivating that confidence and being like, I can be there and I can talk to all of these people. Like, like I have something to say and something to share. And if they don't like it, they don't like it. Who cares? Like I think that this is the key for me as well into being well and into being myself, is working with those things that are preventing me to reach my essence. And those are the blockages. And that's why I keep on doing my own practice of finding those blockages and releasing them. And one of the main things that I do when I work with people is finding those blockages and releasing them, so that then as soon as we do that, we start to open up the potential, and we start to open more of the potential and more of the potential, and people can actually start to be themselves. And then they start to flourish. And then you see the gifts that they are bringing to this world, which is beautiful in their unique way. And it's like, wow, like that is the way of living, more aligned, more balanced, more conscious, more present, more aware. And that is so beautiful. And we need more of that.
And committing to ourselves in that sense, to me, is also the possibility of allowing what we can consider as negative about ourselves to be part of that flourishment. This I just
Mm,
drop it there as a word, I hope is English. But yeah, allowing also that part of ourselves to be accepted in our wholeness, because otherwise, if we notice during our path and during our challenges that we can't actually just be happy and just be joyful and just be motivated, we we kind of not accept ourselves as a whole. So even
mm,
allowing ourselves to be in this uncomfortable feeling is part of the growth itself.
mm.
Because as you say, the blockages are part of uh, what is still part of us, and we
Mm.
still need to release them. But in order also to release them is acceptance as
and
well.
and I would go actually a
Mm.
step even further. It's not just accepting, it's embracing our experience, befriending all of our experience. Like when I work with blockages, it's not about releasing them as getting rid of them. It's about processing them, integrating them. That is the embracing that I want to do with everything in my life. Like that is the befriending all of my experience. And as well, the stepping away from the labeling, as we talked at the very beginning, stepping away from the labeling. What's bad and what's negative, that's just the label. Things are. So can I hold, even though in my mind I might see something as negative or bad, can I hold my experience to be in the space of equanimity, so that I can allow what's happening and not push it away and not repressing it, just as you're saying, allowing, accepting, embracing, integrating all of the aspects of what's happening, because from one perspective as well, everything is just energy. So there's no such thing as good or bad or positive or negative. That's how my lens and my perspective is allowing that to be my life. But that just is, like we might be seeing a painting, and for someone that painting might be beautiful, and for someone else might be horrendous. And it's like, well, the painting is, like it's my lens, the one that is giving me that. So can I actually try to remove those colored glasses that I have, to allow experience, to allow what's happening, to allow the flow of that energy, so that it can move and it can flow, which is the natural state. So the more that I can embrace all of those parts, the more that I can befriend my experience, the more that I can befriend myself, and the easier that life starts to be.
Yeah, and befriending ourselves to me is one of the most beautiful and challenging things that we can do to ourselves, because as you were also sharing, you never feel alone. You are actually with yourself, and that's exactly it in all the aspect that makes ourself us,
Yeah.
in
And
in the
with all,
totality of that.
and we're never alone also because we're always with all of the energies and all of the beings that are invisible to our eyes, and they are always there as well. So, like, definitely we're never alone.
That for sure. I'm aware of the time, and I actually didn't even ask you how much time do you have in this day.
We can keep on talking.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, one of the things that I wanted to ask you that is still related with what you do, but not something that we've been discussing up to this point. And since you said that you have time, I will allowing this question to flow. We mentioned before that we both live in New Zealand, and more specifically, we are in Auckland. And I'm aware that just a month ago, which was a couple of days ago, in October, was Auckland Climate Festival. And I know that you, with your project of conscious action, were part of that as well. We haven't touched yet on that aspect of your sharing, which is anyway one of the important key component that is you sharing the well-being of the earth, as you were sharing. So I I don't know if you also wish to share what the actual workshop was about, but if in general you would like to acknowledge this aspect that to me is very relevant and important, not just in New Zealand, but in the old world, especially considering where we are going. You were saying exactly, it's not
Mhm.
anymore as it was 10 years ago, and I'm wondering how it's going to be in 10 years time, just to give a number. So I wonder if you can share a little about that aspect of your experience, and eventually also if you might have some keywords for us
Mm.
human beings that don't know. I know, but let's put myself in the bucket of I don't know, what can we do in order to improve ourselves, even in that aspect that is outside of ourselves, but is still, to
Mm.
me, part of who we are.
Yes, yes, this is great. And yes, always stay on the I don't know. Like that's what I do. I don't know anything. I'm ignorant of everything. The more that I know, the more that I know that I don't know. So staying open with that is always great. In terms of this, I think that, I find that we have this disconnection, and that we have then the what's happening internally and what's happening externally. This disconnection from ourselves internally has led to where we are nowadays with a lot of depression, stress, suicides, and a lot of different things. Externally, because we have been separated and disconnected from the earth and from other people, then we are taking more than what we like should be receiving in a sense. And the ways that we are actually doing or living our lives are not supportive to a balanced giving and receiving with our Mother Earth. And I think that within the climate change space or the climate action space, I think that the important thing is to understand what's happening and understanding what can I do about that, because like I am just one person. Like I'm not going to change the world. I can change myself, and by changing myself and by understanding myself and my relationship, my interrelationship with all of these systems, then people will start to recognize that and will start to change. So through conscious action, for example, like as you mentioned during the climate festival here in Auckland, I ran a few events. One of them was called um, From the Inside Out, Climate Action in Daily Life. Then I ran a few more events with more immersive and playful experiences doing cleanups. I think that one of the key things with this is understanding, our connection to the earth, our connection to our own values, and understanding are my actions aligned with my values or not. So as I started to do a lot of the work that I've been doing on myself, I started to recognize that certain things that I was doing weren't actually what I actually believed, but I was conditioned in such a way so that I didn't question that. And as an example, like I I went from growing up in Argentina, eating dairy and meat as a typical Argentinian, to like well, now it's been many years of being vegan and believing, of the importance of taking care of the environment, taking care of our Mother Earth, taking care of other people, taking care of the animals, and understanding that I actually am healthy without needing all of that. So if I actually want to, and because that's my value and what I care about, if I want to actually take care of the earth, then I need to know what's actually in the way of doing that, what's not regenerative for the environment, what's not sustainable. Well, the practices that we have for agriculture are not in that way, whether that is because of the chemicals and the pesticides or the animal industry, then all of those things are actually against what I, Brian, believe in. So therefore, I cannot keep on eating in that way or consuming in a way that is like that. Then I understand the impact that taking petrol from the ground has, and then like the needlessness of single-use plastic. So the more that I understand that, the easier it is to understand, do I need that? Do I want to be part of consuming that, which then creates demand and then creates so that that keeps on happening. So I have been now for the last 6 years, like I have been living like what many would call zero waste. There's no such a thing, but it's like low waste. Like I haven't created any like any rubbish. I literally have my rubbish from the last 6 years on a like on a little jar, and I don't buy things in plastic, single-use plastic. So it's like, well, that's what I care about. So it's like, do I want to live in alignment with my beliefs or not? And then I can share, I can inspire other people. I can run events and I can run workshops, sharing people my experience, changing the narratives that we've been told about growth and consuming and all of these different things. The more that we start to actually question things, the easier it is to connect the dots of what is not working. Like if I keep on buying clothing without understanding, like where does that come from? Who grew it? Were they actually paid well? What were the working conditions? Is this actually the material, is it going to last? Is it, like all of these different questions? Then I might be buying needless clothing and being part of the fast fashion industry, even without knowing that I'm part of that industry. And a lot of times, it's easier for me to understand this because I have done the inner work. I'm not judging, I am just understanding what aligns with my beliefs and with my values, and am I actually living in accordance to that? And I can only start to do that when I slow down, when I ask those questions to myself, and when I inform myself. And nowadays, again, the internet is so great. There's so much information out there. I need to actually look who's putting the information, because there's a lot of things as well that are not true out there. So I need to educate myself, and I need to learn. I need to go and ask questions, and I need to be like, oh, do I want to actually be part of this? Like, do I want to go to buy something from that shop or from that other one, that knowing, like who's running that, and knowing like different things about where they invest their money and different things. It's like, actually, I don't want to like spend money in that place. So voting with my dollar is really important. So I consciously choose where I'm buying things from, where I'm actually like spending my money on, and understanding like we don't need that much. Like the more that we slow down, the more that we start to understand that we don't need that much. So it's been a really interesting way of starting to see what I can change. And if I can change that, I do believe that the majority of the population in the world that is not on survival, they can make the choices consciously, because I do believe that everybody's a loving, kind, compassionate human being, that they all care about where they are living, the environment, they all care about other people, whether we might not be like living in that way all of the time. At our core, we all have that. So the more that we understand that, the easier it is to start to then align our choices and align our actions to that. With everything that is happening, at the end of the day, it's like, again, coming back to what can I do? If I'm in a position, like on as a leader of a country, then of course that's a different level of action that one needs to take. But me as an individual, all that I can do is live my life and inspire the people around me, asking questions to the people around me, not pointing fingers, not attacking them. It's asking them questions like, like, why do you choose to to buy that? Why do you choose to eat that? Like as a curiosity, not because I'm judging. It's just because I do believe that they might not be doing that consciously. And when that starts to spark something in them, then that has the ripple effect. And yes, I understand as well, and I talked about this with many people, there is a sense of urgency. Yet when we are cornered a lot of times, we are not consciously behaving. We end up fighting everything and everyone, and we don't need more separation. What we need is more inclusion, more compassion, more conversations, and an understanding that everybody's different, everybody's unique. Like, not everybody's going to believe the same thing that I believe. So I'm not going to force my view on anyone, yet I want to actually know the other person's view. Because at the end of the day, like, I do believe that everybody that is doing things that in my eyes are harming the environment, they are not doing that because they are evil. They are doing that because that's what they've been conditioned to believe, that that's the way that things work, and that they need to survive and they need to amass as much power and money as possible, because that's the way that they will survive and their families will survive. So, as long as there's people believing in that, then we're going to continue on that. And again, it's not that they are bad people, it's that they've been conditioned in that way. So the more that I can hold people with compassion, the easier it is to meet each other. And yes, that might mean that things might go a little bit slower. We don't know, because perhaps the making more separation will make actually most of the things slower in the longer run. So understanding, like, how do I want to be? Like, I don't have the answers. I have the answers for myself. And I still live within the system, like, I'm still choosing to live within the system. And there are certain things that, there's no perfection. Like, I still fly to see my family whenever I'm visiting them, and, I understand the impact of flying. And it's like, well, that's still my choice, and if someone judges me for that, then cool, judge me. Like, the same as, like, I won't do that for anybody else. Like, if someone chooses to eat meat, like, cool, like, go and eat meat. Like, I don't see that as something that needs to be done, but that's me, and if they believe that that's what they want to do, go ahead and do that. Like, I feel like in this space there's so many things that there's so much fight, and that's not helpful. And when we start to see how the system works and we start to ask questions, we start to see, a lot of things actually don't work well. They only work kind of well for some people, but for the majority of the population, things are not well. Like, the majority of the population is actually living in a poor survival space, really bad conditions for work, and for the food that they are eating, the water that they are drinking, if there's any water. Like, we're throwing away like more than 1/3 of the food that we're growing, and more than half of the population is going like is going hungry. So we have a hunger problem, and we have a problem of food waste. Like, how is that actually happening at the same time? It's the same as, like, there's places even here in New Zealand, like, there's been times that there's flooding and there's also a lack of water. And I'm like, how is that possible? Well, the systems aren't working properly. So we need to review the systems. But to review the systems, we also need to understand how those systems are embedded within ourselves. How are we part of those systems? And how can we challenge ourselves in those systems so that we can create the change? Because I do have a vision for the future that is a thriving future, like where we go back to a way of living that is more balanced, that is in alignment, that is in connection with ourselves, with others, with the earth. So I have that as the vision, and I know that that's possible. So because I have that vision as well, I'm much more in a space of possibility, because I do know that we have the answers. It's just a willingness, and it's just an exploration of ourselves to make those choices that, yes, they might be hard. It's like for a long time, like it was like, people wanted to go out to restaurants, and it was like there's no vegan option. It's like, well, like, okay, so I'll eat at home and I'll go out with you like later and I'll just drink water, like whatever. It's it's about making the choices that work for us and understanding, as I've been saying, when we slow down, it's easier to make those choices, because if I slow down, I have time to cook. If I slow down, I have time to make the food from scratch. If I slow down, I can actually take care of my clothing when I'm actually cleaning and washing it. If I slow down, I might actually look at my wardrobe and be like, actually, I have more than enough clothing. Like all of these different things, that we can only do that if we slow down. As we continue going fast in this life, I'm not sure where we're going, but most people are just going fast there. And it's like, just stop for a moment and ask yourself those questions, and you'll come to a different answer than me. Like, I'm okay with that. What I would love to see, as more and more people are waking up, whether that is in a spiritual sense or to what's actually happening in the world, is ask yourself those questions. Slow down and ask yourself those questions. What are my values? Not what are my cultures or my family values or the things that I've been told. What are my actual values and beliefs? And then how can I align my actions to those values? That way is how we're going to start to see the changes in the world, and that way is how we're going to get to that thriving world that I can see and I can visualize. And this, like at this moment, yes, it's challenging. Yes, there's a lot of things that are challenging. How are we going to go there? I'm not sure. Like, I don't have all of the answers. No one has all of the answers. But being able to explore that with love and compassion, I think that's the key.
Thank you so much, Brian, for such a inspiration with your words. There are so many input that people might take as an inspiration to take action in their daily life, and I really like also the the balanced way of sharing who you are and your value, but without impacting or attacking anybody else that might have a different way of seeing the world at this very stage. And I also believe that through not just our word but actually our action, as your project is called conscious action, we don't know that even just might be that one day, just by making our conscious choices about what we want to eat or what we want to wear, someone just next to us might be inspired by what they see, just by how we are affecting our life and the world that is around us, and creating those ripple effect even without being aware of doing that. But I wonder if there is anything upcoming from this project, as any other activities that you do, that people might be interested to get more information to this topic, but also to all the other one that we've been sharing, that you might want to share in this space as a way of potentially creating additional connection for those who have been listening up to this point, and see if your words, as possibly my words as well, have inspired something within within our listener to see, in case they wish to contact you and get in touch with you and be motivated even more throughout their journey?
Yeah, so um, as we get closer to the end of the year, I have less and less things there. Um, I do, like, for the ones that might be here in Auckland, in New Zealand, I do still have a few gatherings, especially in nature, and a few more family constellation groups that I'm still with some of them. I'm still finishing some details, so like if people want to check, they can just check it on either my social media or on my website. Um, I'm like, I still work all throughout as well with those that want to work one-on-one as well. So that's always, open and available. And a lot of times that's one of the ways that I love connecting. And I'm always, open as well for conversations. I might not always have the possibility of saying yes, but I'm always open to conversations with people, without it being, like a session, like something like work. It can just be, meeting someone to have some tea and talk about something, or to have like a call online, or something that I might be able to provide a perspective or support or guidance on something. And I think that, like that at the end of the day is what I love. It's just connecting, like having conversations like this. Like I love this. I love, because as I'm sharing as well, I reflect on my life. So these are great opportunities as well for me to be able to get something.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy this opportunity, even for myself, to have this conversation and connection with you, because it not just allowing me to know you better, but also to be inspired in so many different ways, in so many different aspects. And I'm glad that this actually affected me, and I hope it will make a difference in someone else's life and be motivated to take action in their own life. So before we close the session, I ask you just, it's not one more thing, it's three more things. But who knows, they might be part anyway of what we share up to this point. But in the practice of art yoga, we generally conclude the practice by sharing about gratitude, which is something that we don't exactly can do in a form of podcast, because it will just, let's say, affect you and your day. So I twisted that spark in a way that my request for you is that if you have three empowering messages that you wish to share, starting to yourself, to me potentially, and then everybody else who is listening.
Mm, that's beautiful. Um, Let me just see what comes through. So an empowered message to myself is keep on being love. To you, shine. And to everyone, slow down and question.
I really like them. And the cool thing is that you are the first one that actually literally took to you, to me, and to everybody else. Uh, but thank you, thank you. I take them, the three of them, even for me, and I hope that everybody else will do the same as well for you, to embrace them all into your life as well. But I know that you already do,
Mm.
and I feel that I have that shininess now, at least within myself. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your time, for sharing your story, your point of view, and all the valuable knowledge that makes a difference, not just in my life, but also hopefully to all those people who are listening to us.
Mm.
So thank you for your
Uh,
time.
Thank you, Dini, and thank you for creating the space, for the wonderful questions, and for the work that you keep on doing. The same, like the more that we are ourselves and we keep on doing this and having these conversations, and if someone resonates with it, wonderful.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you everybody for listening. Have a good day. Grazie per averci fatto compagnia. We hope you enjoyed your time with us.
If you wish to stay updated and connected, visit us on our social media channels and our website www.artyoga.co. Ci sentiamo presto. Ciao! See you!